Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Hi, looks like we're live on YouTube. I'm getting a little better. I reached it this time anyway. Uh, Hi, my name is Victor Vogel. Welcome to our next Substack presentation on this week's newsletter. That was interesting. I took a second and kind of reviewed because this is the eighth video I've done, and we've done, of course, 8 Substacks because of that. And when we started this process of educating communication, specifically interpersonal communication, focused on leadership, but available to everybody. Initially, I was searching for subjects I thought I might start with, and lo and behold, I came up with this research piece that somebody did. It was a top 10 pain points that leaders have and things that cause them headaches or heartburn. And I was going over those, and it just astounds me how much they're right on the money with everything we're dealing with in this country today, with businesses in this country today, with government and all the issues that we're coping with right now. They all are very prominent, and they all have a root in our ability to connect and share information with each other. And it just pointed out to me that we still have this weakness about how to effectively communicate with each other. And somehow I think we all think we are good, great communicators, and we don't need that. Obviously, we don't, because it's not mandatory for college graduates, no matter what curriculum you're in. We don't teach it in high school, and we don't teach it in grade school. And I say that every time because I'm trying to emphasize this. Perhaps maybe we should be teaching this, giving our kids an opportunity to come out of high school, and if they want to go to work right away, they at least have one skill set they're going to walk out of there with that's a hands-on skill set, and that's how to communicate effectively. So but I'm yet to convince a lot of people of that, but we're never going to quit trying. So I want to welcome you to this session. I don't know if you read the newsletter or not. All this is behind the paid program. It's only $8 a month, but I just felt uncomfortable putting this much information out there and just letting it float free, and people just kind of pick and choose and throw around whatever they want. It's not very structured, and it'd be kind of like destroys your reputation as somebody who's an expert in this area. So I have this structured, I have it laid out. I've chosen Substack as one of the few social media platforms that gives me at least enough bandwidth, and I don't mean that technically in terms of bits and bytes, but gives me enough space to type uh, something to the point where I can at least express it, as opposed to cutting it down to 180 characters or whatever it is that Twitter does. Um, so Substack is that area, and the way I've done that is we are going to be teaching leadership communication and interpersonal communication specifically. We're doing it by putting out an introductory or light piece. It's the newsletter, and it's about 2 pages long, maybe 3 or 4 at the most at times. Um, and we put the subjects out there, what we're talking about, what is of interest to other people, or what we see as interest in community and the current events. And we're going to, excuse me, we're going to try to put that information out and then talk to you about how you can improve your leadership, or how you might be more influential in terms of communicating with other people, building trust with them, just basically creating some harmony out there that hopefully will lead to unity again. So that's our purpose. That's where we are. We are not a podcast. This is an educational program. It's not a podcast. It's done on what a lot of podcasters use as a platform, but it's not going to be polished. I like it to be kind of real, as opposed to, well, you have 30 seconds to answer this question. You know, that's kind of ridiculous. If you ask somebody a question, give them the courtesy to expound on enough to complete their thoughts on it. So this is more of an educational program. So we have that newsletter. This section is more like a tutorial. We're going to take that newsletter, go over it a little bit, enhance it in certain parts. And if anybody asks any questions or sends in any questions through the comments during the week on the newsletter, or might send a video question, or where I can show the video on the air, we can certainly put the question up on the air. It'd be nice, because some people can actually explain their issue. If you know, we don't want it to be 25 minutes of explanation, but just what the issue is, and what you're dealing with, and what you might be wanting to know from us, or if you just think it helps us understand what we're talking about. I would be excited to show those on the air. So we have all those methods for you to get information into me so I can put it in this program. Plus, this is actually live on YouTube. We are currently live, so if you happen to be in the YouTube chat, and I don't think anybody is, because the only people who can get on here are subscribers, and I don't have any subscribers yet. So we're just going to basically do a basic tutorial here, and hopefully somewhere this information, somebody's going to get on there. They're going to get excited about it. They're going to say, there's a whole hell of a lot of stuff here, folks. It's good stuff, and you need to pay attention to it. Come on and join. In which case, then somebody's supporting. At least I know there's a value into what I'm doing. If it's not perceived of any value, or people, because I am advertising, I'm putting out promos, I'm putting stuff on the air. So anyway, we can take a look at it from that perspective and see how things are going. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about this week. So let me get on over here to the presentation format. There we go. I want to just kind of kick this off here a little bit. The silent erosion, why burnout is a strategic failure So we're going to, let me play this little, there we go. That's good. So I wanted you to be able to get the full sensation of that video that I created on AI. So there's a lot that I think AI can do to be helpful to us in the future. There's a lot I wouldn't give you a dime for, but some of this kind of stuff is pretty good if you don't have the money or if you don't have the time or energy to learn how to do it all yourself. AI can do it for you today. So that is a benefit, I think, goes with it. But I was talking about this today with somebody. This is something that is really beginning to have a significant influence on our society, burnout. Uh, and I will kind of refer to a case that I can talk about. I can tell you it's in the medical industry. That's all I'm going to be able to tell you about it. But I can tell you that that industry that I'm looking at has an 80 to 100% turnover annually. That's a lot of people. I mean, you're talking about whittling down the potentials who want to work for you to virtually nothing real quick when you turn 100% of your workforce over. Um, that means, there are only so many people out there that are going to pursue this medical field. So that's a pretty horrendous turnover statistic. Not to mention what it's doing to your business and the reputation that you might have in that business. And some people really who are doing business with them, who are bringing clients to this company that I was looking at or talking with some people from, I'm not even sure they understand that kind of turnover when they put their loved ones in the care of these people. So it's something you need to think about. I would say we need to pay real close attention to it. Now, I look at the United States government, and this just jumps out at me like crazy. There are people whose lives are ruined, who put their whole career into the government, that all of a sudden they have nothing anymore. And the way they're treated while they're there now is like dirt. It's just a horrible organization. The United States government is a horrible organization to work for right now. Uh, thank God we have some dedicated people that are still hanging around, but I'm not sure that's going to last through 2026. I mean, you can see whole departments just floating away, and that's literally what the plan is for the group that's in power right now. That's their plan, and it's a plan that the big business thinks is good, particularly tech. They think this is good, no controls. They can do whatever they want now, which means the rest of the world outside of those few people that are in tech and those few people at the very top of tech, they're going to benefit from this. The rest of us are going to experience a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about here in this area. So let's jump into what do we mean by burnout, and how does that relate to like the catchphrase that's out there now, and that's workforce balance, balanced workforce and life scenario. It's kind of interesting, but uh, the issue is persistent. It's always being on. It's being having to be persistent, always being on. Doesn't seem like you can turn off. Even when you go home, you can't turn off. I remember before we had computers, and email and cell phones and all that kind of stuff. I'm that old. I can remember that. And people, when they left the office, it was hard to reach them unless you dialed them up on the landline phone, and they just didn't answer. So you didn't know if they were home unless you drove over to their house and looked, and you had to go through all that kind of stuff. Now we got people tracking us everywhere we go, whether we want them to or not. This is you are under the spotlight. You are persistently always on to your workforce or to somebody who wants you to be accountable to them. And that might be the government. It might be your boss. It could be someone that you're close to that wants to keep tab on you. And this is all done fairly easily through technology. You carry it in your pocket every day. And if you turned it off, people are going to think something's really wrong. So, and what that does, it leaves you emotionally exhausted. I mean, you're just totally drained. Your personality changes in this particular environment we're living in today. And you also get physically exhausted, and you're wearing yourself down. You're not getting the sleep you need. And when you do sleep, it's not the right kind of sleep because your mind is logged in on, it's jumping out at you in the middle of the night, and you have wild dreams and all kinds of things that bug you and interrupt your sleep. Now, there's a way to cope with that physically, and you should learn how to do some of those things. One podcast that I watch, and I go back and visit this same podcast like probably once a month and maybe more, trying to pick up more and more information out of it. It's Andrew Huberman's podcast, and he's a neuroscientist, and he does a lot of podcasting on sleep. And it is literally one of the things that will get you the fastest is when you really don't have a good sleep regimen. So it'll age you quicker too. I know that for a fact. But then that's going to leave you mentally exhausted. So you're emotionally exhausted. You're afraid, and snap at somebody at an instant. And you're mentally exhausted. You're foggy, and you forget things, and you're disorganized, and physically you're not sleeping. You're tired. You don't have energy. All of that can come. It can literally come from just being totally overworked, burned out, just totally burned out, and it's could be some of the things you're placing on yourself. It can come from your bosses. It can come from the outside environment. There's a lot of places that can be impacting you in this area. So this is no small thing here. This is not something you put in the drawer and say, I just saw that about burnout. You need to think about it, and you need to think about what's going on with you, and you need to identify some of these things that are happening with you right here. So what are some of the negative consequences that can come from this? From fatigue, we have what we call decision fatigue. In a business or an environment where you're trying to get things done through other people, a leadership environment, you have a decline in making choices. People procrastinate, they hesitate, they're uncertain. That uncertainty causes the procrastination or the hesitation. And when you hesitate, you don't make a decision, then you don't know if it's working or not, so you don't know how to change. So change is something that people tend to resist a lot. Part of that has to do with the decision fatigue process that goes with it. Then you have what we call emotional dysregulation. Losing the what we call silent pulse, a lack of emotional intelligence. Silent pulse is a real good term for emotional intelligence. I like it a lot. Unless you put your finger on it and you think about it, you don't know what's going. But once you put your finger on your iron or up here, you can feel your pulse. You know the heart's beating, and all of a sudden you're aware of it. Well, we need to be aware of our emotional intelligence, and we need to be able to read ourselves, particularly if we're going to learn to read others, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But it's a lack of emotional intelligence. It's silent. When that pulse goes silent, it's not good. It's a lack of emotional intelligence in leadership, and that leads to reactive leadership versus intentional or purpose leadership. So you need we don't often take the time. It's something I noticed in companies when people ask me to come in and start consulting. I don't just go in and say, okay, here's your book. Here's what go read this book, and you read my book, and you're smart, and you'll know everything. No, that's first of all, reading any book of anything like that is not going to let you be effective at it. You've got to go do it, and that has to come from actually practicing it and making all the mistakes and everything. But when I go into an organization, first thing I do is assess it. And part of that assessment, there are several parts of the assessment process. One of them is a survey. I do a survey overall just to get a snapshot of time, what people are thinking or feeling at that point. Then I come back in, I do a series of interviews with some random selected employees and some selected employees just to make sure I hit everything. And I ask a series of questions that kind of align with the survey that they took to see if what they're telling me aligns with what the survey data says. And most of the time it does. It really does. I would say it's probably about a 95% correlation most of the time. And so you get a chance to ask some questions in there. And the other thing I do is I spend some time. Now, if I'm doing a department, I will spend time in that department, and I will spend time just talking with employees, sitting down in the break room, chatting with them, watching them work, just observing their work patterns, watching them talking with each other. Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? When you're talking, do you really understand what's going on here? What's going on when you're talking to two people? There's quite a bit, and most people don't realize that. And part of that other survey I take, survey data, is the communication. So I get a good feeling for the behaviors over the years, and about 8 years of college and 40 years of using communication to help develop leadership. I've got a pretty good list of behaviors over time, just writing them down and checking them. And I put those into a survey, and I use that survey. So what a survey is, it's really most of the time just a list of pretty substantially validated behaviors that represent a particular action that you're taking. And so you can normally, if you look at a survey, you can think, somebody saw somebody doing this. So it's pretty concrete, observable stuff. So anyway, I can observe. Most of the time I can observe things. And some things you can, like, what was your last meeting about? Did you take any time to talk about how people were feeling, how things were going, how we were connecting? How do you feel about what the organization is and where it's going? Is there anything that causes you concern? Something on the Maslow hierarchy, security and not self-esteem, but security and survival level. Okay. Are you worried? Yeah, did somebody put a little bug in your ear that maybe we're doing a layoff? I see leaders shy away from those kinds of conversations. And for so many years, early in the 70s and early 80s, people used to talk, do not get personal with anybody. That's none of your business. Stay out of there. Well, you can't work with people, half of their waking hours and your waking hours, you're together, sometimes more than you're together with your spouses. You can't not have a relationship. So that's a ridiculous premise to start with. So you have to balance both of those. You have a family life. You have to balance one where your work environment. So yeah, there's some guidelines and parameters and rules and boundaries, and that's good for what we need to do that with. But sometimes leaders just shy away from that personal interaction stuff. Just they're not in. It was like, what's the production being? Do you need any more money? What kind of tools can I get you? Whatever it is, but not are you okay? How are you feeling? How do you mentally, are you strained? Do you feel like you're wound tighter? Tell me about it. Tell me how you feel. What would you say? You don't see leaders doing that very much today. And so this emotional dysregulation is sort of losing the emotional intelligence of the leadership role and the emotional intelligence of the communication. That's when I say interpersonal communication, the interpersonal side of that is emotional intelligence. It's about your behaviors. It's about your relationship, your interpersonal relationship. And the communication is those processes you use to establish, sustain, and maintain the proper relationship that's right for you. And when that's out of whack, you can see it in the communication. People aren't talking to each other. Go to your corners. Don't talk to each other. Things will go, and maybe it'll calm down and go away. It never does. Because interpersonal is integrated in the communication process and vice versa. It's the book I have out, it's called Navigating Conversations. And the subtitle is, I think, something like where the intersection of emotional intelligence, where emotional intelligence intersects with communication mastery, your ability to communicate effectively and apply emotional intelligence appropriately in that communication process. That's interpersonal communication. When that is happening and it's happening correctly, then things are going well. When it isn't, you can see it in all the behaviors of the employees. You can see it in their nonverbal reaction in their face and the way they're walking and the way they're cleaning the table. They don't look up they come over and clean your table at McDonald's. They don't look at you, they just rub it real quick and go. It's not like, oh, hey, how you guys doing? Did you enjoy the meal? That's a great day. I mean, can I get you anything? Do you need any napkins or anything? You're not going to get employees to do that if you don't have strong emotional intelligence within your organization, specifically through the communication process. And that's what they mean here. And that's not easy for people to understand and know. They don't, they're not comfortable. I don't know why. People are just not comfortable with that. They just feel really uncomfortable talking about it. And particularly businesses where they're saying, I think they want to say, you need to be disinterested because I don't want to care about you because I have to fire you if you don't do your job right. And I got a whole set of tons of stories about how we did that more effectively than I don't know you very well, so I can fire you easier. It doesn't work that way, folks, but it's still a problem. But there are ways to help people recognize this isn't right for me. I hate it. It's not what I want to do. Okay, well, sit down a minute. Let's talk about what you like to do. And I want to be able to get you where you want to go. So I need to help you start finding that place. But I want you to have that survival and security level that you're used to here until you can get that. So, but I need you to kind of pick up here, or I'm going to move you over here and let you do this instead of that, okay, for the next 2 or 3 weeks while you find something. There's all kinds of ways to do that. There's all kinds of ways to do that with emotional intelligence engaged in it. But we don't know how to do that. And we don't know how to use communication to approach that topic area like a firing. We don't know how to do that from a communication perspective. We think it needs to be stern and direct and quick and out the door. You're screwing with somebody's life when you do that. I am astounded today. We fire 100,000 people, or however many it was, with a Twix message or a tweet message. I am astounded at that. How absolutely galling that must be for those people. Don't even give a damn enough to take the time to come down and work through a process. If you got to do it, or you want to do it, even if financially, okay, there's a way to do it with some emotional intelligence. So anyways, when that goes, when all that's going, you see all of this burnout stuff that we talk about, all these emotional, mental, physical, and emotional feelings are coming from a lot of this activity we're talking about here. Then there's the physical and mental decline, okay? Long-term impact on health is that the leader's effectiveness and the general health overall begins to fail. It begins to fail. And you can see it in the way people work, the way, the timing, what they used to do quick, they hardly get done in a day now. Or they're exhausted. Their mind, they're lost, they're foggy, and they're exhausted. And what they used to get excited about doing something, even if it was wrong and it was a mistake, they were excited about learning from it and changing. And at least we know that's not going to work. Let's go down this path. It's easier for me to accept this path. All of those kinds of discussions used to be really pretty prevalent at times. But now we don't talk to anybody. We text them. We don't even, I can fire you and I don't have to worry about being in front of you face to face. Forget about you being a threat to me, just having to watch you cry because you got to go home and tell your kids and your family that we can't have the things that you want now for a while. And I don't know if I'm 54 years old. I don't know if anybody's going to want to hire me in the same kind of position. We may have to sell the house and move to someplace we don't even know. And you have to give up your senior high school year. Literally, folks, this is what you don't see today because you do it with a text message. My God, how cold-hearted can you be? When you could take a little time and figure this out. Figure this out so it's not going to destroy a life or a bunch of lives. Hell, 100,000 lives is like destroying a community. I lived in some communities that only had 16,000 people. That's like, 10 times a community? 10 of those little communities, you wiped out a county with a text message. Think about that. It's crazy. It's crazy, but this is where we are today. This is where we are today in the organizations. And it's because we really don't know how to talk to each other. We have never been taught how to talk with each other. Well, no, that's not true. You can talk and you can hear. You have not been taught how to communicate. And you think you have. You think you know how, but I tell you, out of tens of thousands of employees I surveyed, 80% of the time or more, absolutely without question, I put money on this, 80% of the time, 8 out of 10 employees would say that their leader, one of the things they would like their leader to do better was to communicate. And that leader thought they were great at communicating. They'd joke with them, they laughed with them, they weren't connecting. They were talking, they were hearing them, but they were not connecting with that person. That emotional connection in there was not there. And I can't tell you the number of times people talk, because that was one of the questions I asked. What's the one thing, if you were picking one thing your leader could do better, what would it be? And it was over 80% of the time it was communication. Or it related to that when you started, maybe they say, be a better leader. I'm going, what do you mean by being a better leader? Well, I never see them. They never talk to me. Well, that's a communication problem. It is a leadership problem too, but that's the macro level, so to speak. This is the micro level, is they don't know how to communicate effectively. Excuse me here. This is one of these unprofessional things we do when we're just teaching. My son turned me on to AeroPress coffee, and I swear I threw everything else, my Keurig or whatever you call that pot, and all the coffee pots and everything, and that's all I do. I just make one cup at a time, and this is fantastic. Anyway, back to the subject. So we got decision fatigue, we have emotional dysregulation that puts a halt to everything, and then you have health problems. And that's expensive to a company, not only in healthcare coverage, it's expensive to the company because of lost time, lost productivity, a whole host of things. And we could go over them, and I could sit down and go through a financial statement with a CFO and show them this connection constantly. And they'll want to refute it all the time. They want to refute it, but they can't deny it. That's the deal. Yes, I guess we lost, we had to spend $12,000 finding somebody that was already producing for us. Well, how do you count that? Oh, that's over here on expense. It's not, it's nothing about the asset side. There's nothing that's important like the asset side of the balance sheet. I'm going, you idiot, that's money you're losing. So anyway, I don't say idiot. Well, sometimes I have. So this is important stuff for you to grasp a hold of. There is some negative consequences to this burnout that goes with this. So things you can do from a communication. So when people talk about work-life balance and burnout and all that kind of stuff, they're going, we need to reduce the work week. We need to get better benefits. We need to put in mental health care benefits, and there's a lot of structural things that they start talking about. But there's a lot you can do to reduce a lot of this that doesn't impact you putting more money into a different healthcare program, or that you have to reduce your work week, or that you, structurally you reassign work or something like that. There's a lot you can do just between people to take burnout out of the picture. Not out of the picture, but certainly reduce it considerably. So these are kinds of things you can do without restructuring, adding costs, all those kinds of things. They're actually they're interpersonal communication things you can do. First of all, you can master the compassionate no. You can set boundaries, and you can talk about how you're going to talk about that in the organization. So somebody goes, nope, not doing that. The boss comes in and says, Well, I need you to do this and this. Marjorie's out today, so I need you to do this and this and this. And she was going to get done. It's really important we get it out. Thanks for your help. And the guy goes, nope, no way in hell. I'm not doing that. Now, that you could have that kind of conversation. That's going to add to burnout. It's going to add to burnout. But the compassionate no is different. It begins with the leader asking themselves, where is this person? How much workload are they on now? Where are they mentally in their job? How are they doing? Do I know them well enough to know how they're doing? If I go out there and say, hey, I've got somebody out and there's some things that absolutely can't get done, then the compassionate no comes around through discussion and dialogue and your opportunity to learn how to communicate effectively, interpersonally, with compassion, with empathy. And so it's like, I saw she was out. So, I know these things are really important, but, I've got every minute of every day right here for the next week. I have no time in between here. Now, what we could do, you sit down a minute with me and we can work through what you think we could prioritize that I don't need to do that I could do for her right here until she gets back. I know, she was sick and she got the flu, so we don't want her to feel bad about being out, that's for sure. And I would prefer she don't get behind if I can do something to help. Do you see what that happened? How that sounds? What's the difference between that and going out and saying, I'm going to load you up with a lot of extra stuff? You need to, if you need to stay later, that's okay. But boss, I'm not on hourly wages. I'm a staff. I'm not even paid overtime for that. Well, that's part of being staff. That's why you're important to us. I hear those conversations so many times. I'm going, no. That's not going to get it. That's not going to get it. So we talk about how we talk. We talk about how we communicate, not how we talk. We talk about how we communicate compassionately, how we can set some boundaries, how you can talk about what's realistic and what's not realistic, and come to consensus, a collaboration, if you will. I talked about last week, one of the most important things you can learn as a leader is this collaborative conflict resolution, okay? And that's where you come to an agreement using emotional intelligence, empathy, compassion, effective communication, back and forth dialogue, synchronizing with each other, being creative and creating the solution to something that's really tough, but coming out with a solution that's good, that we both agree will work. Not compromise, not where I have to give up something, they have to give up something. It's if I'm having to do something and we're prioritizing, I'm not giving anything up, and you're not giving anything up. We're both agreeing that that's not as important as this. That's not the same as compromise, folks. Compromise says I have to give up something that's important to me. Well, if it's important to you, let's talk about it and let's compare it, and together talk. Is it as important as this? And how does this impact you if this goes bad? Okay. Well, I can see now what I'm doing. I can put that off. Sure. These are the conversations leaders need to have in their work out there. So, setting boundaries, agreeing, using collaboration, using empathy, using interpersonal communication tools to deal with those particular issues is important. Okay. Then there's radical transparency and capacity. What's that mean? Managing the flow of communication, mastering the communication process. It has to do with organizational communication. Sometimes you could have so much stuff that it just blows your mind. It's information overload. You just can't absorb it all. So some of it flies over, and you're just going to go, I'm sorry, I missed that point. But that was, the whole essence of us making budget this month. Well, I'm sorry. I just had, I can't handle all this stuff. And I don't know how you respond to somebody that says that to you later. I tend to go, whoa, okay, so maybe something's going on here that's deeper than me just giving you things to do. This is important in terms of making sure everybody has all the information they need in the most accurate way and no more than the information they need, not the superfluous stuff that they're really not going to have an impact on them. So you have to be able to understand what your people need and what they don't need, and their capacity to handle it, and chunk that information into manageable terms and prioritize it and put it together in a way they can get their work product out there effective and efficiently. You have to know that person's capacity for that, and you have to interface with them to know that. If you don't, if you hide in your office and all you do is text message them, you are not going to get this information that you need. And so then they come to me, the leaders come to me, I told them what to do. What the hell? How come they can't do what I told them what to do? Well, how'd you tell them? Well, I sent them an email, all of them an email. I said, did you see if they got it? Well, no. I just, I said read on it, so that everybody read it. Okay, well, they got it. Did they understand it? Well, I don't know that. They can read, can't they? Yeah, but did they understand it? Were you clear in what you were telling them? Well, of course I was. Well, let's go find out. Come on. And you take the memo out and you go, hey, did you get this memo? Yeah, it's over here. Did you realize how important this memo was? What do you mean? This sentence here, right here. Oh, Fred, is this what you told him? Yeah. Does that sound important to you? Well, I didn't take it that way. No feedback. No feedback, no connection, no interface, no interpersonal communication. These are happening day in and day out constantly in leadership to employees. It's also, frankly, happening from employee to employee between departments, because departments rely on each other. Whenever I go into an organization and we want to go and really make a change in the cultural environment, take the toxic culture and turn it into a healthy, productive culture, man, I don't let them stop. They go, well, how much is this? And I go, this. And I said, but look, here's what we're doing. We're going all the way down to every employee you have in your organization. I don't care what the mailman, the person in the mailroom. They're going to get the same training that this leader's getting down here in communication, because you have to have it going up as much as you have going down. Otherwise, you're not getting what you need. I don't know about that budget. Well, you better go figure out whether you want to make change or you want to save money. Go figure which one it is. And then talk to me about it. And I have actually rejected contracts based on that. But for the most part, they go back and we start really putting our mind to it. And really what happens is we start saying, well, I'm saying, well, you can't sell this whole thing to your board. So what can we do? Well, we could start with the 2 or 3 departments that might have the biggest impact, and that's a lot less money, but we might get a pretty good return on investment. They might see that and ask us to, oh, okay, let's start there. So we start with a $300,000 project. And we start working. And guess what? The word gets out quickly. If anything, if something's going well in a department, everybody wants to know what they're doing. and they go out and it spreads like wildfire. I mean, it's like the flu. It's like a virus that just permeates the whole organization quickly. And that's what happened in that particular instance I was telling you about. Was a real life situation. That's exactly what happened. And now, I didn't go in and say, I told him, I said, you're going to have to do the whole organization. He goes, no, can't do that. And I said, well, let's come on, sit down. Let's talk about what we can do and figure out how to make this work out for you. Because I really want you to have, you got something going here. And that's how we did it. And sure enough, the board came in and said, hey, man, we need to do this. We're getting a return on investment for every time we spend here for sure. Let's do some more of this. Okay. And we would do the whole organization. So radical transparency of information and sharing it all the way down the organization, getting everybody excited about it, getting the feedback coming up the same way. That's what is always missing in organizational communication when I assess it. The feedback sucks. The direction, the one-way flow of here's what I want you to do, because we're so task-oriented in America. Now, I can't speak for Europe. I'm just talking about, or other places, or China, or anywhere else. I'm just talking about America, where I can speak to some for Europe. Europe doesn't handle their people this way, by the way. They are a much more empathetic, they use much more emotional intelligence and emotional interpersonal communication in their work environment. But they also have a government that forces them into that mode. But it's paid off for them. Now, they could have probably negotiated a little better so you could reduce the friction between the government and the company, but that's another consulting project for somebody else. So these are things we can master the compassion and know by setting boundaries and doing that so everybody's happy. We can make information radically transparent to everybody. Don't hide anything. Even if you're going to do a reduction in force, you have to lay people off. Don't hide it. Go down and get people engaged in helping you do it. It will come off so much better. So much better. And no, you're not going to lose 3/4 of your workforce. Is not going to dump them. First, they don't have anywhere to go. Secondly, it's how you handle that. Whether you handle it compassionately, empathetically. If you're doing it that way, you're helping those folks exit the organization. They're going to go anyway. So let's help them do it the right way. They hang around, everything goes much smoother. And a lot less cost in the end. Sometimes it's hard to convince executives of that, and especially finance executives. But I've run into some, be honest with you, I think the finance people get a bad rap because I've run into quite a few finance people that are compassionate and empathetic. They just didn't realize you can be that way and talk that way in an organization. It takes some integration of departmental, community-based consulting to get that kind of stuff flowing in an organization. But when it does, damn, it's powerful, really powerful. Active listening. Here, I think active listening is something that pops up in every single one of these we've done. And it's because we don't know how to listen well. We hear, I hear you. I just don't know how to listen, actively listen, intentionally listen to you. Connect with you so that I am actually to the point where I'm feeling your anger. But at the same time, I realizing I don't want you to be angry. I am churning out how I need to keep you from being angry. I see you're angry, but we need to kind of calm down, and because anger isn't going to get us where we want to be. And the other person, you start regulating, but you have to understand where you are. And you have to get in line with where they are. And then when you have that, You have the capacity that's in your mind. It's built into your brain to be able to simultaneously feel angry like that person is, and at the same time logically saying, I need to make this person less angry. And you can do it. It is there. You have to know you can do it. You have to practice it. You have to learn it. You have to practice it. Yeah, it's where we have failed leadership. We have failed leadership miserably in their development. We do not take the time to develop leaders. This is one of those areas that takes months, if not years, a couple of years, to really get it honed down where it is working for you very well. It's not a natural. You are not born with it. It is not natural. You're not having this discussion in the womb, you and mom, or if you have twins, two twins are discussing it. That's an interesting perspective. What's it going to be like on the outside, Fred? No, there is no outside. There's just here. Why do we keep moving towards this opening there? What? That's weird. I'm sorry, I stole that. That's something I saw, and I don't know if it was AI or if it was really Keanu Reeves, but it was supposedly a story that Keanu Reeves' mother used to tell him, is what they said. But to listen to what was going on was, and he wasn't telling the story, it was another person, which what makes me think it was AI. But it was a great discussion. But this is the deal. These things can happen in your organization. Just because they haven't doesn't mean you can't learn them. You can't grasp them. They're not beyond your bounds. They're not difficult to learn. They're difficult to do over time. So you have to, it's like shooting a 3-point foul shot. You don't do it right the first time you try it. And eventually you kind of get the feel of it and the flow of the arm and the wrist and where you're holding the ball, the weight of the ball, all that seems to be clicking in your mind. Next thing you know, instead of missing 3 foul shots, you're hitting 1, then 2, then 3 consistently. So that's kind of how you have to practice communication. You have to learn it. You have to understand it. You have to convert that information into knowledge. And then you have to kind of personalize it where it fits you so you can use it. And then you go out and apply it effectively amongst others. You have to learn how to connect and use that communication process to apply what you just learned real well. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. And you have to have feedback. But you have to be able to listen and hear, and not just hear what the other person's saying. You have to feel what that other person is saying. In addition, when you're getting there, you're getting into actively listening, intentionally listening. Things work much better when you can do that well. They work, you experience a lot of these other negative things when they don't work well. Okay, I'm going way past what I wanted to, but again, these are all important things for you to understand. This last two are two areas that are really prevalent right now that I can point to all over the place in government and business and personal lives and including my own, where people are making mistakes in these areas. And you need to learn about them and then try to improve them. And it's where grace comes about from that kind of behavior. So here's some key points. Take care of yourself first. Learn how to communicate yourself. Learn what it's all about to see these things in yourself. Know where you're coming from before you start trying to improve someone else. Build some boundaries, but do it compassionately with respect. If you have issues, learn how not to say just no. Learn how to negotiate dialogue with somebody to you can collaborate with somebody is the word I was searching for. Use collaboration a lot to try to figure out an alternative that makes sense. Don't settle for a compromise. Compromise is a damn lose-lose scenario. Everybody loses on a compromise. When two people get together, they're coming in with their absolutely loggerheads against each other. If you keep them talking long enough, someone's going to throw down an idea that is different than what either one of them said. It's going to come out of them, and the other one's going to say, well, that might work if you did this. And next thing you know, the both of them have created this idea that was better than their one. And I've taught that for years and years, and it's worked for years and years, and it still works today. Synergy is good. Collaboration is better than compromise. And you may think you can't reach agreement. I'm telling you, you're going to figure out you can reach agreement through collaboration. What's happening is you can't get it if you've created a dysfunctional, non-compassionate culture. Then yes, you are not going to get something through. And then it's not just that somebody loses, both people lose something. They never lose it equally. One is always losing a lot more than the other. And that never leaves a lasting positive environment. It just never does. So know your boundaries, know how to use these things. And use regulation over reaction. Reaction comes when you're not engaged in communicating, when you don't have the information you need, when people aren't all involved in everything that's going on around them that's important to them. When that's happening, you're not reacting to something because it surprises you. You know it's coming, and you have all the planning, like a layoff. When you engage people, what you're going to get is reactionary management leadership when you go in and all of a sudden somebody goes home and they get an email and it's, don't come to work. I saw today on the news again something about a federal agency. I think it was a consumer protection agency. And the lady just got an email and says, well, you're fired. You don't need to come into work. I'm going, that's reactionary management. Don't do that. Don't do that. If this is something, Doge is the ultimate, not how you should do things. It is the ultimate Harvard Business School case study for how to F things up. There is so much that you could do with the knowledge of AI and computers and the talent of these young people who are just amazing at this stuff. There's so much you could do if you can convert them into using interpersonal communication as part of their methodology for change. So much more you could do. But we have what we have. But we don't have to have it. We can change it. But we got to do it. Somebody has to move in and do these. So these are just 2 or 3 things that can kind of help you understand the burnout. This idea of burnout is a lot more than just benefits and pay and hours and work week. This is about human interaction not being right, folks. And that we have the capacity to change it. We just have to understand what the issues are, come to understand and then change how we treat each other and how we communicate with each other. And then we will. Create a culture that is both productive, but it's productive because it helps build the humanity. It makes things better for everybody. The people who buy your products and services are better off for it. Yay, we like that. Employees are living better than they ever lived. Yay, we like that. And yes, you are still going to be stinking, filthy rich at the top of the organization because you put your money in it. There is a big difference, though. You also helped every one of those people who work for you and who buy things from you have a better quality of life, too. And after all, if you were honest, when you first started your business, that's why you did it. It wasn't to be filthy rich. Now, we're changing that mental attitude a little bit. We got a whole bunch of people out here who want to come on to social media and make billions of dollars by themselves online, not talking to anybody else, not doing anything to anybody else, not even worrying about what's happening to anybody else. What the hell is happening to other people when you do that? Have you even figured that out yet? Do you even care? No, I'm a billionaire. I won't need to care. That's how societies die. And you will not like the society that you get into when you start living that kind of world. Okay. I don't have anything else to say. I don't see nobody is on here. I get pretty passionate about these presentations, and it's important to do that in order to show what really is involved with compassion and empathy. So, if you happen to see this video, and the likelihood is you are not going to see it unless you become a paid member. And then you look at it and you go, holy crap, there's some good stuff over here. You better get your ass over here and start. For $8, are you kidding me? Not only do I get this kind of hour-and-a-half presentation about how to reduce burnout in people, things I can go into work tomorrow and apply if I read Vic's book back there. I think it's this one over here. Yeah, there it is. Navigating Conversations. And by the way, I want to learn how to be able to read nonverbal communication so I can intentionally, actively listen, because that's a big part of getting into who you are and what's going on, is being able to read you. Okay? So that's all part of stuff coming up down the road, that we're going to address each of those areas in and to itself, so you can get really good at this stuff. You're good at it. You're going to be one of those leaders that employees don't only want you to lead, they demand you lead them. They demand you lead them. They need you. They want you to lead them. When you have employees saying that about you, you're on the right track. Ladies and gentlemen, there's another newsletter coming out Tuesday. There'll be another one of these. Now, I can do them by myself, and eventually I'll have a pretty good playlist of stuff to go out and put together and sell it. Or we can get a bunch of people in here and start working together and really grow with each other as we churn this stuff over. I need that. I need somebody to do that for me. I'm putting stuff out telling you about it, but I am not going to give it to you for free. You have to invest in this. You have to invest all of 2 cups of coffee. Cried out loud. Do you know how much money I used to get for this? Every hour, and then I spent 40 hours a week in corporations, sometimes a year and a half or 2 years inside an organization. That's a $30 million project. I'm asking you to give $8 for what I basically was providing all of those people. $8. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've made my sales pitch. I'm waiting to hear from you. If you have any questions about whether you should do this or not, you can get on Victor L. Vogel, www.victorlvogel.com. Go to the section that says events. There's an events calendar. Book a session that you can, the times are in there. Just go in there and put your name, and I'll see that you did it, and I'll contact you and say, hey, cool, I'm looking forward to talking to you. And I don't charge for those. I want to talk to you about this. I want you to get excited about this. I don't want to charge you for it. I want you to just talk about it and start spreading the word. I wish I had the tune, Spreading the Word. There's a song, something like that. Anyway, you have a good afternoon or good evening, whatever. I guess it's good night now. And this plays well in any other country besides the United States. It's just exceptionally important for the United States right now. You have a good one.